Hello and welcome to Canvas, the Niger-Delta Roundtable, where I discuss the future of this region blessed with hydrocarbon resources. Every week, we give some time, we reflect on topics relevant to the development of the Niger-Delta and the people. This episode, we're doing precisely that as well. And once again, I'm here, we're discussing how to take our region to a more promising future. This podcast is sponsored by the operator of the NNPC, Renaissance Total Energies Ajib joint venture, Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited, headquartered in Port Harcourt. Thanks for joining. I'm Adid Dayo Ilushakin. The topic for this episode is the making of an Afrobeats star. Afrobeats is more than a genre, it's a global movement from Lagos to London, from Port Harcourt to Paris. Its rhymes have become the soundtrack of a generation. But behind every superstar is a story of vision, risk, and relentless creativity. Today, we'll take you behind the scenes of one of the most remarkable journeys in modern music, the making of an Afrobeat star. How does a young artist from the Niger Delta rise to dominate global charts? What does it take to build a label that shapes culture and creates icons? This is not just about music, it's about strategy, sacrifice, and the art of turning talent into timeless influence. Now, this conversation isn't just about music, it's about the business behind the beats, the strategy that shapes sound, and the sacrifices that turn dreams into reality. We'll explore the early days, the defining moments, and the bold decisions that helped create a global phenomenon. Again, topic for this episode of Canvas is the making of an Afrobeat star. And my guest is Piriye Isokrari. Piriye Isokrari is a visionary entrepreneur with a unique blend of experience in business and a creative industry. He's best known for founding Aristocrat Records, the label that helped shape Afrobeats and launched global stars like Burna Boy. With a background in economics and years of leadership across diverse sectors, Piriye combines strategic insights with creative vision, making him one of the most influential figures in Africa's music and entertainment landscape. Piriye Sokrari, hi, welcome to Canvas, the Niger Delta Roundtable.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, trust me. It's great to have you here. It's literally impossible, in my estimation, to discuss the beginnings and the growth and success that is the Afrobeats movement globally
Yeah.
without talking about Aristocrat Records, without mentioning your name in
Yes.
several conversations. So I think it's safe to say that I am very pleased and honored to have a legend
Oh.
sitting across from me right now.
I'm quite flattered. Thank you for the compliments. I think we did our best to play the roles that we have to be able to see the scene to be where it is today.
Mm. Afrobeats is, and for some time now, has become a global phenomenon. And I perceive that there are many persons, not a few, who did not see this, who may have thought, yeah, it's nice or it's even cool, but not many persons, myself inclusive,
Yeah.
saw what it is today. It's still unbelievable for a number of persons. However, what was the landscape like when this journey began?
Well, the journey began a long, long time ago, even before I came into the scene. I would have to give credit to people, and I'm sure there are even people before them that planted seeds. Of course, there was the era of the Fela Kutis and them, and when they had all the big international labels like Decca around. And then there was like I say, the new era that I would want to attribute to the Kenny's Music, KKD1, Two Face Idibia um, era that started this new generation, this new movement. I was a fan at that stage of the African music, from Plantation Boys to Tribesmen to the guys that were coming out from Storm Records, all down to Mo Hits. And as a lover of the music that we were producing. I and also a lover of like I say creativity and the entrepreneurship and the passion that I saw in the space. I was kind of drawn to want to take part in that. And I think I was in university in the United States when my own Afrobeats bug, when I got bitten by Afrobeat, but this was years ago, and seeing what um, was happening in Africa, the music and the talent that was coming out, and looking at what the business landscape was in America, the possibilities of where it could go. I was looking at I'm a big hip hop fan also. So seeing what they were doing in hip hop music kind of planted another seed to see it's possible to do it here in Africa. And coming back, of course, to Nigeria, the landscape wasn't as fertile. I wouldn't put it that way. It was still very, very early days. The people that had figured out ways to make money from music, mostly through the performances at that time. Um, I think it was when the Mo Hits era came in where we started seeing like brand endorsements. Before it was a lot of like the big cigarette companies like Rothmans and Benson and Hedges sponsoring these concerts, and that was like a big avenue for revenue for the musicians. Where CD sales were not really there as much again. But I think in '99, 2000s, we started seeing the Alaba market resurgence. You started seeing more sponsorship coming, but it was still also seen as not a business. It was seen as something that's just this bunch of um, creative people, radicals per se, were misfits, were engaged in. It wasn't still seen as a business owner or potential for a business. But I think seeing from my own perspective, seeing what was happening in the United States and looking at their industry and seeing that we had all the ingredients to build something, I wanted to become a practitioner and get into it and see how I can get and do my own part. So that was the early days. Um, for me, coming from or being from the Niger-Delta, I also felt like there was an opportunity to build something here in the Niger-Delta. Because again, when you look at again hip hop in America, it was culturally driven. It was we were seeing people rapping. Then, of course, there was a big East Coast, West Coast hip hop battles that people were dying over and everything. That was so much driven by the culture of the East Coast, but like gang culture, culture of West Coast. So there's a lot of culture in the music, and I felt like we could build something based off the culture from the Niger Delta.
And we'll come to the cultural aspect of it in a moment. And it's very key to this conversation, Maris, especially how Niger-Delta influenced this global push, if you will. But we'll come to that shortly. Um, true, I do concede. You cannot discuss modern music in Nigeria and its rise to international acceptance without the likes of Kenny's music and a couple of others who did some great stuff. EME and co. But I mean, even though a lot of persons want to associate with Afrobeats now, the music wasn't called Afrobeats at the time.
Yes.
We ventured and dabbled, and the artists, they did well for their time. There was R&B, there was soul, there was... In fact, people started to coin all kinds of expressions: Afro pop, Afro fusion, Afro. It was a lot, but it wasn't Afrobeats. The only person who created, in fact, Afrobeats was Fela.
Yeah.
No, in fact, I don't think many persons at some point wanted to even identify
with Afrobeats.
With Afrobeats, exactly. So that said, and in spite of the successes of some of these artists, those who were doing R&B, those who were, Chocolate City's whole thing was hip-hop, rap and all that. They didn't quite break through. They did well for their time, and I was a fan, I still am, of a lot of them. But there's something about Afrobeats. So what is it about Afrobeats that makes it such, that gives it this global appeal?
Um, I think it's primarily Afrobeats as in the global sense is a culture. It's like as you said, if you look when we were still just focused on the local market, it was just different people doing different sounds, borrowing from foreign sounds and everything, hip hop and all of that. When it landed on the foreign scene, it's more about a culture. It's not just it's the music, it's the fashion, it's the dance, it's the videos, it's the whole the parties, the DJs. So there's a whole movement behind it, and it's very similar to hip hop. Now, I think we primarily were using it as like escapism, escape music, party music, happy music, and everything, and that is quite infectious. You know, everybody wants to have a good time. And when you see Africans having a good time, we look like we just won the World Cup. You know, like
It's like a carnival.
yeah, it's a big the big time thing. So that the diaspora, of course, taking that Afrobeats culture, which comes with the music, to the clubs in the UK, to the clubs in the Caribbean or wherever else we found the African diaspora, you know, and that energy that we moved with. So when I was in America, I saw the impact that I think it was a year with Sean Paul was one of the biggest artists back then, and I saw the impact of like what dancehall and reggae was doing in the scene there, and I had this long debate with a friend of my college. I was telling him that look, if you look at the numbers of Jamaicans and how they've spread the Jamaican culture across the world to the point where their music is now also topping charts. I think we can do the same thing with Afrobeats or African music and it being even bigger because what is a numbers thing. You know, there are over a billion people in Africa. And again, Afrobeats is lumped into the entire African continent and is consumed mostly in the African continent. So whether Ugandans, South Africans, Ghanaians, you know, sometimes they're a mix and match of we do a song over here and there are these collaborations and everything. So we can't remove our non-Nigerian brothers from the mix. But if you look at the way the Jamaican culture traveled and how that was a platform for their music and still is a platform for their music like reggae and Bob Marley, um, I it was inevitable that Afrobeats would come to that level. Now we had infrastructure problems that restricted us, but with the birth of the internet and the YouTube and the streaming, that opened up that market and democratized things a bit and allowed the penetration to be a little bit more. So I give it a lot of it to the diaspora, the African diaspora, as the people like leading the charge of this music and how they were able to use it to spread the music, spread the gospel. And then, of course, followed by the internet and made it more accessible, where people from there can tap in and see what's happening. This song I heard at this African party, I can Shazam it and discover the artist. So things like that helped it spread some more. And as I said, it's infectious music when we are partying, when you just and then when you of course when you dive into the Afrobeats pool, usually brought in by the music and the partying and the dance, you then discover, okay, there are some introspective guys here. There's some guys that sing about love also. And then of that, of course, then opens you up to more people. People that might not be looking for just a party, might be looking for more. And then it keeps on going and it keeps on going. Yeah.
You describe Afrobeat as a culture,
Yeah.
and then you talk about hip hop as well. And a lot of people who talk about hip hop, especially people into hip hop, describe it as culture.
Yeah.
So it appears that for global music genre, culture is key. It's
Yes.
integral somewhat. So because
Yeah.
people are buying into more than just the sound,
Yep.
it's the culture that they're keying into. Uh, there's a school of thought that would argue that Afrobeat originated from the Southwest. Who is the progenitor? The creator is Fela Kuti, a Southwesterner. So that said, what role, in your estimation, or how important is the Niger Delta to the growth uh, and humongous success of the Niger Delta, or pardon me, of Afrobeats rather, considering that it is said to have emanated from not within the Niger Delta?
Commercially, maybe from the southwest, and that's because of the strong media presence, and most of the media houses and the international TV stations are always in Lagos. Lagos at one time was Lagos is the commercial capital of the thing, so that's why it would seem like that. But culturally, I don't think so.
Mm.
I think people like the guy, what's his name right now, Victor Wifo, that had a gold record with Joromi and um, if you see a what's not that's not that one, the Mami Water song. Yeah, and Saj Rex Jim Lawson, that I grew up when I was going to school in Port Harcourt on the Radio Rivers every morning hearing Rex Lawson's music. And those people were around the same time with Fela and it's around the same decade. And their music was as influential as his, even probably widely more commercial than he was at that time. And generations are impacted by the generations before them. So maybe Fela had a very, very vocal, strong brand because of his activism. But musically, you can't take out Oliver the Cook from the East. And there are tons of other artists. I'm just even mentioning the very I say popular names and everything. But the music has been emanated around Nigeria before now. Music from the Niger Delta was played everywhere. Music from the East was played everywhere. So it's not new per se. Um, as I said, the reason I feel that why people give credit to uh, the Southwest is where that's the commercial capital. So when they were sponsoring the big shows, when they were doing the big concerts, most of them at that time were in Lagos. But again, Port Harcourt also had a very, very big club scene, especially because of our expats visitors that would come in. So we used to be known for some of the best parties in the 70s and especially with all when I say when the all guys would come in, people would come in here and everybody would want to come to Port Harcourt and they used to throw parties and the musicians were doing very, very well as their southwestern counterparts. So as I said, the past influences the future. We don't tell these stories, so you might not know. We don't highlight the musicians from the Niger Delta that were successful. If you say Victor Waifu, people don't think of him as a Edo man. They just think about him as a musician. But there needs to be more to be told about this is where this person is from. When you hear about Rex Lawson, you don't hear about his tribe. But we need to do more stories so people know that this music didn't just originate from the Southwest. We all had a hand in other thing in creating and elevating the music from days past. Now, when you come to the modern day sound, I feel like the sound in the Niger Delta, because we are very, very cosmopolitan, especially if you look at a town like Port Harcourt, it's not a town that there's one language, it's English or Pidgin. And that's very common around the Niger Delta. So I feel like the music that we make, because of that cosmopolitan nature of the Niger Delta, tends to travel further. While the music coming from the Southwest travels through a particular tribe or community and everything. But I feel like the music that we make can go as far and wide and it's not limited by a community or a mother tongue per se.
What inspired you to start a record label, Aristocrat Records, especially at a time when the industry was still, for all intents and purposes, evolving, and it wasn't in vogue to even do that. And considering the little that I know of your background, what you described here, I mean, you were, some might say, living a comfortable life. You were in the US. You were. I mean, there are others also who have similar stories. Oh, we were overseas, we're in the UK, this and that. I mean, Mohit and Co.
Yeah.
But you were not on the streets
No.
Exactly, exactly. So, what is it? What inspires you to do that?
As I said, I got the bug. I passion. It's a passion, a very passion-driven decision. Um, but I saw an opportunity. As I said, when I was there in America, um, funny enough, you mentioned Mohit was a very big trigger, a very big wake up call, and I'll explain that. There was the Nigerian reunion in Houston in 2007, and I went for no in Dallas. Sorry, it was in Texas, but Dallas, Texas, in 2007, and I went for that reunion, and they flew in the band Don Jazzy and Wande Cole. And I was like, for the fact that this music that I'm listening to and I'm a fan of, Nigerians are flying these guys over, paying them. This is going to be a big deal. Um, there's again looking at patterns. I'm looking at patterns is something that you have to in terms of strategy, like trying to see what are the other cultures, how have they grown? Being a big hip hop fan, you know that okay, it starts with small cultural community parties and then it spreads like that and everything. So seeing that early, I was like, oh, this is something that's going to be big. Now, I was speaking to a friend of mine that was already in the music industry here, another Port Harcourt native, Latte Badon. We're chatting on Facebook, and I was telling him he knew I was into the music thing in America and all of that, and he was telling me that oh yeah, the space here is growing and everything that he thinks is a good time. I was like, okay, I want to come back and check it out and try it out. I just finished my undergrad. I was like, I'm going to go back to Nigeria for 1 or 2 years, see if I can set this label up and give it a shot. That was the what I say the those were the series of events that led to me coming back to do that. Um, I'm very very driven by things I'm passionate by. I found myself that if I wasn't doing something that I liked or I wanted to do, I was underperforming. So I was like, you know what? I want to do something that my heart is in. And at that point in time, it was like, I see something with this music business. I see it's going places. Um, these guys are traveling the world. It was just maybe small, it was O2 then in the UK that maybe the band would go to a concert or the Coco concert, or there were things, the business was becoming, was shaping up. You'd see South Africa, Channel O, things were,
So you saw things and
yeah,
you thought we can make this happen as well. And let's go back home,
yeah.
spend a year or two and see how things go. Did you have a strategy or was it just, I'm seeing this thing, let's go try and figure it out?
So I had a strategy in my head. It was, again, I'm from Port Harcourt. Also at that 2007, 2008, I think Timaya was also just hitting the scene. And he had the Mama Soldiers album and it was now going big across the nation. And that also kind of sparked something for me where it's like, okay, this guy is a Port Harcourt guy because then I also Port Harcourt was the same thing. It, I think I even knew somebody and I knew him from Ajib days. So I'm like, this guy's a Port Harcourt person and he's doing this from Port Harcourt. So I'm from Port Harcourt. That's where I grew up. Before I left America, that's where I lived. I went to secondary school in Port Harcourt. I didn't. Lagos was not part of my upbringing. It was fully Port Harcourt. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back. And then there were also, I think in 2007, 2008 was the Young Money, Cash Money, and they were also from a different part of not they were from the southern part of um, America. So you had him, you had what's his name, Master P, No Limits. They were not from the major cities, which would have been a Lagos or Abuja at that time. So I felt like, okay, there's a cultural strategy I can adopt. Go to Port Harcourt, start from Port Harcourt, build something from home that reflects home. And again, then when you look at Port Harcourt, the number of radio stations are of course lesser. The people you're arguing, fighting for attention with is lesser. I also have support from I also have support from having family and friends there, so I can navigate that space a little better. So the my strategy was really really built around home, building a platform from home that can do what I was seeing being done from Lagos, whether with Mo Hits and all of that and everything. So that was like the general strategy that I had. Apart from that, the full business plan and context wasn't really developed. It was just like, this is what I wanted to do.
And what were the initial challenges, the biggest ones that you faced in setting up your music business?
Funding, of course. Funding is always a key thing. Um, I would say culture also. When I mean culture, so Nigeria has a, a unique business culture. When you now add the entertainment business into it, it becomes even more more dynamic and more unique. And I would say I would use this as an example. Is the way you treat your women in society will be reflective in your music business. So if we have like big female stars that don't get the same attention as the male ones, that's not just a music business thing, it's also a cultural thing. Also, when you now look at it from a business perspective, if everybody is doing business from Lagos and you come in with a mindset of I want to be able to do it somewhere else, the culture is telling you that you're not going to succeed because you're not doing it the way everybody else is doing it. So there are some cultural nuances that come with doing things in Nigeria. Also, there was a little bit of reacclimatizing for me, like coming in and settling in and also figuring out um, where do I even find an artist? Like how do I find the right artist? And everything like that. So there was I would say, the initial settling in phase. And of course, part of that is, okay, where's the money going to come from? So luckily for me, I'm from would I say, upper middle class family that had opportunities for me to tap into their network to find ways to make money. I started off doing like procurement jobs at Total and looking for other jobs to be able to raise the capital to do my own business. And once I got that kind of with the Aristocrat name as as my business name, once I got that up and running, that then was like, okay, I have the money now. Where do I find these artists?
And we'll get to that in a moment. Or next, when we return from the break. It is Canvas to Niger-Delta Roundtable, the making of an Afrobeats Star. So we're discussing today. My guest is Piriye, you might know him, founder of Aristocrat Records. So stay with us. The conversation continues shortly.
In the heart of our journey, where the sun touches the earth and the wind whispers through the trees, a new chapter unfolds. A chapter where energy illuminates more than just bulbs. It lights up minds. A chapter of unity, a coming together with a common goal to energize futures and illuminating lives. In classrooms, young dreams evolve, inspired by the promise of a brighter tomorrow fueled by available energy. Small businesses flourish, becoming seeds of prosperity. Energy that empowers and is catalyst for growth and change. The future is energy. So, let's light up the path to a sustainable future together. Energy for you, me, and the world at large. Energy for people and planet. We are Renaissance.
And welcome back. Still Canvas, the Niger-Delta Roundtable brought to you by Renaissance. I'm Dale. The makings of an Afrobeats Star is what we're discussing in this episode. My guest, Piriye, founder, Aristocrat Records. You're welcome again.
Thank you for having me again.
Before the break.
Yeah.
So you came back to the country, had a strategy. I'll start from home. One of the biggest challenges, um, financing. You did a couple of things, raised some money, registered the company name.
Mhm.
So it's time to go. And then you asked the question before we went on the break. Where do I find the artist?
Yeah.
Because that's key.
Yep.
That's what you're supposed to sell.
Yep.
If there's no product, you're dead in arrival.
Exactly.
When you first encountered the artist, who will become a global star. By the way, in case you don't know, I'm Burna Boy. I'm talking Burna.
Yeah.
No, that was not for you. That's for that
Yeah, I
was
just
fellow
wanted to-
watching.
Yeah.
What stood out for you? How did you know? Yeah, this is the person, or this could be the person.
So I know we're saying the making of an Afrobeat star. That's this thing. But I like to say something. I like to say that stars are born, not made.
Mm.
Now you can mold that star because maybe I'll get deeper into that. But I say that because when I saw Burna, when I met him in person, the first time I actually met him, I wasn't paying attention. It was like at my birthday party at Presidential Hotel. Another artist brought him up to me to introduce him to me and say, "Oh, there's this artist that just came back." And I was just, had a British accent and I was a lot of activity going on. So didn't pay attention to him. But I think the day after, I called a good friend of mine who was also a mutual, like a older brother to him, and reached out and said, "Oh, I'm still looking for an artist for this my label thing that I want to do." And it was like, "Oh, call this guy," and everything and all of that. I called Burna and the first thing he said was, today I remember, like, "I've been waiting for you." That was the first thing. Deep voice, very confident. I was like, "Who is this guy?" and all of that. So we tried to meet at the Job Boy studio at an old GRA back then. And then I remember once he came into the room and I saw him, I said my senses went off that he's going to be a star. And he had something about him that, and I keep on saying this, that even if he wasn't a successful musician, he would have either been a successful basketball player, football player, or a boxer. Something. Stardom, he just had the look and aura of a star. Now, again, patterns. You can tell these things sometimes. Sometimes it's just straight intuition. Or sometimes you can see, oh, he's X amount height. He looks this way. He's built this thing. And then understanding the environment and cultural, what would sell in that market can also be able to help you identify. But I think for me meeting him, this is before listening to music as a person, I could tell that there was something different or special about this person. Now, hearing the music and that's at that same meeting, at that same initial instance, of course, then checked the mark, sold me even more. He played a song from me called Freedom. Now, again, Afrobeats as we know it then is still very party driven and all of that. And it takes a true artist to be able to create outside of what um, is popular. Like to be able to just create something different from what is trendy and everything. It takes a true artist to do that. So sound-wise, it was already very different from what was trendy. Second part of the song that caught my attention, he was talking about an incident, about a real life incident in the song. So it takes, and again, music at that time, very, very surface level. You don't hit my car, but you go repete. We're not trying to shakomo. They're not doing too much. We're not thinking too deep and introspective. But again, somebody that is willing to push the barrier and delve deep into his own personal experience and put it into music, that's a star. So those things were there, first of all. physical appearance wise and just aura. And then when you then hear the music, and of course, for him to deliver music at that level, at that sound, there's a level of talent that is required. So that sums it all up for me, where it's like, okay, there's something special here.
So maybe you've answered the first part of my next question, but I'll ask nonetheless. It's a two-pronged question. So what does it take to identify raw extraordinary talent? And then the second part is, as you mentioned, you said stars are born, but you may still have to mold the star. Now, even when you've identified it, what does it take to turn that into something that's globally appreciated?
So what it takes, I like to look at talent scouting. It's the same bit, like what I would do as a talent scout or a music talent scout, the same thing a football talent scout would do. There's again patterns of like this person is a good runner. He sprints well, ball control. This particular skill sets that you would look at to be able to identify that this person is a great football player. And then you same thing for music, maybe the vocals, the appearance, stage presence, stamina in terms of even performing. Some people don't have the ability to sing and maybe dance and run around the stage and be able to do things like that. So if you find somebody that has that skill, you know that person will be a great touring artist because they're a good performer. So vocally, content-wise, we want to say swag-wise. So there are patterns that you can look at and see and identify. There is also like having a proper understanding of your market. Like, who are you selling the music to? Would they like what this person is saying? Is there anything different from what this person is saying than what any other person is saying? So understanding of the environment. And then there's it may be a certain thing called taste and technical, I don't like calling it like taste and technical ability that doesn't come, not everyone has that. So you might have the ability to spot the pattern of like, oh, great singer, great this, great that. You might understand the market, but you don't have great taste in music. And that might sometimes hamper your taste in music might be what is trendy. So being able to have a taste that goes beyond trends and understand the technical ability of how to translate that into something is another thing that I think you need to have for a global superstar.
Now, you signed Bruno eventually, early days. There must have been some moment, a defining moment, when that shaped his trajectory and by extension, Aristocrats and yours as well. What was it? Because yes, you saw this guy, he checked certain boxes, but what else was there besides checking certain boxes? You talk about how he created music that was even different from the time. So that may have been some concern also. This is not Shakomon or the rest of it. So what was that defining moment that,
There are multiple. And it's really at the different stages of the career. I think I had the...
Let's do early days now, because we have another one later coming up.
Okay. Yeah. Early days was the acceptance of the music in Port Harcourt. That was it. Because again, as we said, wasn't what was trendy per se or what was common and everything. It's very new sound. But beyond being a new sound, a new personality. We had a perception of who our musicians or how our musicians should be and everything. And I feel like he also kind of broke the mold in a couple ways in that space. there have been artists that it's not just about being maybe radical or different, because there have been artists that have been more radical and different. But so just a certain essence that I believe he came with. And once that was accepted, like I remember there was a mixtape we were working on. I sent it to a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, that was also a business partner, and he was like, the music sounded too um, dark, and it was but then there was a mixtape, and my thing with the mixtape is more about showing your versatility. Like I can do, not about selling a pop single. It's more about displaying your talent, the different how the depth of that talent. Um, then my friend was like, "Oh, it's a little bit too dark. He's speaking about this. He's speaking about that. The music, and dark might be dark for Nigerian context, not necessarily like American or gothic dark or anything. Just for the type of music and what we were used to hearing, I would say. Um, and the fact that that was accepted, um, also was very, very, I think, was very, very telling to me.
How do you navigate a transition between local success to international recognition? How does that even happen?
I think it's different for everybody. It's different, but I don't think you should transition. I mean, let me put it that way, because the recognition is coming from what you're doing locally. So I think the big mistake some artists try to make is they try to transition too much into that international market, where it's like the only reason why the market possibly noticed you was something that you did that was working in the local market. So transitioning creatively, I would say don't. Transitioning business wise, of course, you need to, because the business is over there is much, much different. The way more structured. Um, there's a little bit, I'll say there's more to lose in if you get into the wrong contract out there. In the market here, it's almost like you're fighting over percentages of that don't exist in the local market. But there, a publishing is publishing. It can pay it can be your pension. So being more aware of what the business is important. And then that would just be like having good judgment to surround yourself with the right people, the right advisors, people that have more experience in the international markets, people that have a track record. So that's why maybe sometimes you want to see artists signed to bigger labels, because you're going into their market and they know the market better than you do. You should be a master of your own local market as a business person.
Mm.
And that's the value that you would bring, because especially now that this market is the trendy market, you should master that and know how to collaborate with whatever foreign partners, or how to export your artist or promote your artist in the global market. As I said, things there, it's easy if you know the right things to do. It's easier to tour than to put up a tour in Nigeria. Even if you want to do a thing where you only want to do capacities not less than 500, you have multiple venue options to be able to do that. If you want to do something bigger, you have multiple venue options to be able to do that. In Nigeria here, you don't have that. And the touring space is very, very different from the recorded music space or the publishing space. So you need to also just be well informed about the business out there. Is far, far advanced from what we are practicing here. So that's the way I would say you need a transition per se. It's like knowing that, okay, this is different business. It's not the same, but it's not the same type of situation.
Still along the transition line,
Yeah.
what role did streaming platforms and digital media play?
That's, as I said, beyond the diaspora, that's probably the second most instrumental thing that projected the music or carried the music. Streaming is great for discovery. And that's what those platforms are for. I'm anti-streaming when it comes to the business of selling music. I don't think streaming should be it. Streaming is great, as I said, for discovery of music. It's like putting your music on radio stations. When the radio plays it, public hears it, and people go and look for your CD or buy your CD or buy your music. So I feel like that's people just relying on streaming as the role to commercialize the music is not a good thing. But for discovery, for exposure, it's a wonderful platform, and it has done wonders for a lot of artists. You could, off of streaming, you could go viral. Maybe you could go viral and you can make a lot of money off of streaming. You could be discovered. You could be put on one playlist, and that starts your journey. There's a lot of things that is done. Digital media, of course, YouTube. YouTube has been great, not just for musicians, for content creators alike. It's a source of being able to generate revenue, but also is a source for exposure. A big platform for exposure, billions of users from across the world. Your song that you made I saw an Ira Star song being sung in Portugal, The Voice. And traveled through streaming, digital media. I don't know if she's ever been, she probably has for like Afro Nation or something, but that's how music travels. Streaming has actually helped push the music far, take it to people's phones in different parts of the world. So it's been a great tool. Digital media, a great tool. The whole digital thing has been great. As I said, but backed with the African diaspora has really propelled our music.
What is the challenge with streaming as a source of selling music as against, I don't know what other form you prefer. Do you prefer the CD situation? What's the challenge?
So I think the challenge with streaming is that it has devalued the music. It's like I'm paying $9.99 or 5,000 naira to access all this content. You don't really own it. You pay a subscription, and whenever you don't pay, they can cut you off and you don't have the music. Now, I think there's still opportunity for artists to be able to sell their music, which is what the business is for. It's like a painter that does a collection of paintings and goes on and puts them on exhibition. His goal is to sell them, not for you to just come and just look and see, and maybe one brand will sponsor the exhibition. That's kind of where we are now, where the final commercial transaction is being kind of cut out, and we're not paying attention to that. And then all we're now left with is saying, okay, if you're popular on streaming, you can go and perform, and people will come and watch you, which is a way to monetize. But still, I think music is art. A song is like a painting. And the way you can value a painting and sell a painting, you should be able to sell a song or sell a body of work. And there are new movements and tools that are being developed now that kind of address that, where it's like, okay, you can hear my song on streaming, but I have an album for sale. You can come and buy my album from me and hear more than that one song. And at that point in time, you're committing to saying you're like a fan of this person. That's why I'm going to go out of the way to be able to pay for this product. So I think that's a missing link that needs to be addressed currently. And even beyond that, if you don't want to do it, you can sell T-shirts, you can sell merch, again, live experience. But again, the music itself, streaming has totally devalued it to say when one person listens, it's worth 0.000 cents. And then it makes it even worse now. If now the listener is from Nigeria, a listener from Nigeria is worth less than a listener from the United States, because Nigerians pay less subscription fees on these platforms than the United States does. That's why you see companies like Netflix will pull out from Nigeria, because you people are paying, what is it, 5K, 4 or 7K per month.
You people, you say.
Us.
That's fine. So, I know I asked you a similar question, but at the initial stage, then much later on, what was the moment when you knew that, oh yeah, the world has noticed?
Wow, there have been so for personally along our own journey. I think it would be Ye and African Giant album for Burner. That's an experience I've been part of. But again, if you go back in time, there are like moments that I remember, like Colin Powell dancing Yauze to with what's his name, Olu Maintain, launch of culturally there are some bigger moments that was like, okay, the world is listening and um people are paying attention. Personally for Burner, that was that. But as I said, for the movement as a whole, there have been tons and tons of moments. The band Oliver Twist, their songs, African Queen, Two Face. There are a lot of moments that I could pay attention. But for my own this thing was Burner. I would say for Burner's Ye.
Mm. All right, all right. So today,
Yeah.
when you went through this journey, it was a while back. So today, what does it take now to create an Afrobeat star? Is it any different from back then?
It's more expensive. More needs to be invested in terms of commercial revenue. But let's look at it's always good to look at people that have been successful at doing it. And one of the biggest, of course, is Burner. That's a situation that I have a front row seat at. Burner grew up in a home where belief in yourself was practiced or pushed or ingrained in them. So I would say, which is why again, a star is born, but it's molded first from your home and everything. Is that giving your family giving you the confidence and encouraging you in terms of they see maybe they know you're a good dancer, they know you're a good singer. That's there are some mothers that every time when you have a party, they call their children to come and sing and dance to show that they know that they have the talent in them. So it starts from the home, providing an enabling environment for the child or the artist, if not from home, from school, where they can feel free to express themselves, feel free to explore their creativity. And Burner got that from home. Then, of course, his mom was his manager. So having a very nurturing, understanding manager that is there for your best interests would help you find a label like Aristocrat who fits what you need to be able to get to the next level.
And speaking of getting to the next level, how can young creatives in the Niger-Delta position themselves for global success now?
It's much, much easier, I would say, because it's much expensive, but much, much easier because right now the world is watching. So when you have people's attention, it's easier to be able to cross over. There are more tools. Of course, we talked about streaming, we talked about digital media, YouTube, TikTok. So there are more platforms that can turn it around for you. But the hard part is putting in the work, the hours you need to make sure that your music is what it needs to be, the being able to dedicate yourself to a career that you know that you have to put in time, and maybe for the first 3 years you might not see a return. Um, that's a core part of it also. So being resilient through the ups and downs is very, very necessary. But um, artists from the Niger Delta should look at Burner, should look at Timaya, should look at Duncan Mighty, should look at Wanda Banton, should look at Dan Dizzy, should look at Ajabo Osa, should look at Omale, and know that if these guys who all came from various different situations, but mostly from this same city, have found a way to make it, it's possible for you also. You just have to surround yourself with the right people, make the right music, and put in the necessary amount of work to get there.
And finally, looking back on your journey, and I imagine you've had those moments when you do that, I guess, from time to time. What are you most proud of?
I'm proud of seeing through my dream. That's what it is. Like I'm proud that I had a dream to be able to start a record label in very in at an awkward time in the not so conducive climate, and being able to persevere and be part of stories like burner stories. And then there are even some other stories that are not as grand and as big as burner, but as a label, we're able to take somebody from point A to point B. The amount of the success, just going down this path and having a success story to tell. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's it for this edition of Canvas, the Niger-Delta Roundtable. The makings of an Afrobeats Star is what we've been discussing, thanks to my guest, founder, Aristocrat Records. Piriye, it's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me again.
And looking forward to your next big stuff.
Yes, we're going to try and do something more special and more bigger and more impactful, always.
Looking forward to it.
Right.
Thank you once again. Catch this episode and others across our various social media platforms, and you can watch this on YouTube as well. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. Canvas and Niger-Delta Roundtable brought to you by Masons and Diane.